When Oblique Seville won the 100-meter dash in Tokyo, I have absolutely no doubt that the entire sports community in Jamaica celebrated that victory. Of course, Jamaica went 1-2 in that event, but his race, like that gold medal, is the only one that they actually took home from the World Championships for the entirety of the meet. And remember, this is a 9-day competition, and I have to compare this to what happened the year before, because Noah Lyles of America won the gold at the Olympics once again in the 100. But when he did it, allow me to explain the difference in the reaction, because we have athletes, like in the American sports community, pro basketball players, NFL players, and so on, and they went on record to say, one in particular, that they were actively rooting against Noah Lyles before he stepped to the line. Granted, they gave him respect for winning the race. But the point is the point, that America really doesn't care about track and field. And now that the World Championships are over, I'm here to air out my thoughts, because I've been paying attention to the American sports media, and for that matter, talk to friends, family, people who say that they're casual track fans, and trying to understand what the temperature of the water is. Because America took care of business in the World Championships. They won 26 medals, 16 of which were gold. That's twice as many medals of any color to any other nation in the world. So when I say America is the world's fastest nation, or for that matter, the best in track and field, because we're not just talking about the running events, I'm not making this up. If we're just counting up the medals, who gets them, and what uniform they're wearing, we know that the Americans are legit. But the issue is that the track and field community and then the sports community in America are incredibly disjointed. So much so that almost nobody I know personally who is not already inside the track and field community was aware that the World Championships was even going on. But hey, you ain't gotta believe me. I've got the receipts to prove it. I'm going to walk you through just how broken track and field actually is in America, because we just had the pinnacle of the sport for the year 2025 go down, and America went over to Tokyo and took care of business. Like, the men's 4x1, they actually won gold. Like, that's a big deal, because we know they have the talent, but they got it done. The women, they've been doing it for a while. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, you already know what she did. She broke an American record, the fastest woman in 40 years, won a gold medal in the 400. Like, we have a whole lot to talk about. But most people weren't paying attention. And to be clear, my desire is not just to sit here and complain during this video. There's a whole bunch of ideas that I have about how the sport can move forward, but I have to be clear, because I know that this channel is incredibly international. Shout out to you wherever you are in the world. Wherever you are, if you are watching this channel, and please, let me know in the comment section exactly where you might be located. But I'm going to approach this from the American context, because what we're dealing with when it comes to track and field is very different from the rest of the world. Remember, if you don't win a gold medal, doesn't matter if you get a medal of another color, nobody's going to even remember that it happened. So much so that you might even struggle to get a sponsor to pay you to be a pro athlete in the first place. I'm not making this up. Daniel Roberts was an individual Olympic silver medalist in the 110 hurdles last year at the Olympic Games, which is supposed to be the big show. And after that, Nike dropped him. Once again, I'm not making this up. And he ain't the only one, because Nike also dropped Bryce Deadman, who was an Olympic gold medalist, albeit on the 4x4 relay. And he was over there in Tokyo again. And he's leaving Tokyo as a world champion. But as far as I know, when he left to go over there, he still didn't have a pro sponsor. Just let that sink in. I do have to give a shout out to Shannon Sharp and the Nightcap podcast, because he has been platforming track and field athletes. He brought on Melissa Jefferson Wooden, T.T. Terry, and even Kenny Bednarik. The only problem is, his behavior in the media is not the norm. So let's have a very real conversation about the state of pro track and field in America, because as far as I can tell, this right here is embarrassing. We can go and compete with the best in the world and take care of business when we do it, and it really doesn't matter, because although America might be killing the game when it comes to international track and field, I think that's safe to say when you check out the medal counts. The problem is that the American sports media has made it very clear they do not care. That is why pro track and field is such a big preoccupation in the American context, because we can't figure out how to do something that people actually want to watch. Whether you win a medal or not, especially if it ain't gold, is not going to put money in your pocket. Good luck out there trying to buy food with a medal. They don't accept that at Walmart. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. and I'm Coach Rob, and if you really want to know what's going on with the fastest athletes in the world, then you are in the right place. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section, because I try to read them all. Before I go any further, what I'm going to do is I want to make it very clear that I'm not making any of this up. So there's two ways I'm going to choose to approach this. One is going to be the anecdotal approach. I'm just going to tell you a few stories so you can understand what actual sports fans are telling me about what they understand about track and field. The type of people who would like to watch the sport. That's what they say. But didn't really know anything was happening with the World Championships. I'm going to go on that group. But before that, I'm actually going to focus on ESPN, the so-called worldwide leader in sports, because they did put out, press releases, or, most of it was like syndicated from the Associated Press or something like that, so that maybe they didn't write it themselves. But at the very least, they were updating people to some degree on what was happening at the World Championships. Granted, very few people actually saw those write-ups, and as far as I know, almost nothing hit television. Almost nothing. But I'm just going to walk you through what we actually said in our media so you can understand why nobody knows what's happening and they don't care about it. The biggest stories that actually might have made it on TV, like the news, local news, national news, or what have you, might have told you about from the World Championships if you're American, were as follows. They likely would have told you that Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, and even showed clips of the race, showed the race, her women's 400, where she wins the gold medal and runs the fastest time in 40 years, number 2 all time. Remember, Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone is already a world champion, Olympic gold medalist, world record holder. She has a fan base, which is why she has the perfect combination to actually show up on TV after the race has happened. Again, after, not during. On a different level, Noah Lyles was a headline story, specifically after he won the 200. I say he was a headline because if you go to ESPN and you look on their website for the headlines around track and field, he's what you're going to see, celebrating his 200. You'll also see the men's and women's 4x1. You'll see that as the latest or one of the latest headline stories related to the World Championships, once again focusing on the American context. And I'm just going to say that if you actually read the write-up, look at the language that they used. I'm not saying that they're bending the truth. I'm just call cap on the whole thing, because I watched the races. Yes, America won the gold on both sides, but specifically when it comes to Sha'Carri Richardson's anchor leg, no shade, we're just being honest. To frame it as she saved America, that's not true. She did not save America. She helped America. She was a part of a 4-woman team. But her anchor leg is not the reason why we won. Maybe it was last year, but that's not the truth right now. Jamaica, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. But to put everything I just said into perspective, you need to realize that if you actually go to ESPN, remember, they are the self-proclaimed worldwide leader in sports, but they're really just talking about America. When you look at the dial, all the sports options that you have to click on and learn more about, whether you're on the app or on the website, track and field is nowhere near the top options that you get. You'll see NFL, NBA, MLB. You'll even see the WNBA up there. College football, stuff like that. And then they have a tab that says more sports. And there are 29 things you could click on when you go to that tab. I know, because I counted. And regardless, track and field is not one of the 29 tabs. I'm not making any of this up. The only thing that you can click on is a tab that says Olympic sports. And of course, that's where track and field falls under. Before I even go any further, you have to see the problem with this. They are describing track and field as an Olympic sport in that context. In other words, the only thing that matters is the games. So whatever you're about to witness between now and 2028 LA is just randomness that's happening on the way to the games. That is how the American sports media is talking about the sport. So unless something gets rebranded, that's how Americans are going to understand it. And considering Americans love to pay money for sports, if you are a sport where nothing happens for 4 years, because yes, races are happening, the Diamond League is happening, Grand Slam track tried to happen, but this is how it's talked about. Hey, I just got to put that out there. When you actually click on the tab and scroll around, because it's not all track and field in there. Remember, it says Olympic sports. But when you do scroll around, what you'll notice is that in the time window that the World Championships happened, There were 16 stories that addressed American athletes heading into the World Championships and so on. 16 in total. I'm going to add a bonus story for a reason that led up to the World Championships because Usain Bolt's quote, like he said some things, that showed up in the blurbs for the American media because he talked about the world record saying he doesn't see anybody who had the talent to break it. That made it to American sports media, even if nobody really saw it, but it was technically there if you wanted to see it. Of the 16 stories, 2 of those stories were Arian Knighton and Fred Curley. One of which is a suspension, and the other of which is an athlete who is on a provisional suspension who's entering the enhanced games. Neither of those are technically about the World Championships. So, 14 stories were about the Worlds. 14 of them. And only 5 of those stories mentioned an athlete who doesn't compete in a sprinting event. Once again, I ain't making this up. Only 5 of the stories. So as far as you're concerned from the outside, America just essentially sprints. The 1, the 2, the 4, the 4x1, the 4x4. That's it. That's the only thing they're telling us. I didn't even know that America went 1-2 in the pole vault on the women's side until I was preparing for this video. That's how far outside of the realm of relevancy that event actually is in the American sports media. I mean, fortunately there was a blurb, America goes 1-2 in the pole vault. See where I'm going with this? And I probably shouldn't have to tell you this part, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The athletes who kept showing up in the headlines for the sprinting blurbs were Noah Lyles, Sha'Carri Richardson, and Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. Don't get me wrong, Melissa Jefferson Wooden does get mentioned because she ran fast enough and won enough medals where you had to acknowledge her. But it's clear that they don't really like leading with her because they don't think it's going to get enough clicks. I'm not trying to be rude, I'm just putting this all out on Front Street. That is how the World Championships were covered in America. Let's just take a moment and process everything that I'm saying. The World Championships are supposed to be the height of the sport. That's what it's supposed to be. And the truth is, if you are an American track athlete and you qualify to wear the red, white, and blue and go over there and compete, you have to be one of the best in the world. It's just how it's going to go. I'm going to go here and I'm going to address something that, hey, it's circulated a little bit on the internet, so let's just go there because we already came this far, we might as well just keep on going. In case you haven't figured it out by now, this is one of those videos where I'm likely going to be saying some things that will upset some people. And guess what? If you're new here, I'm here to let you know. I'm willing to accept the consequences. But yes, when it comes to Desirez Smith, who runs the 400 for America, he ran on the relay in the 4x4 that almost didn't qualify and then did qualify and then had a whole new team running the final. And there was some chatter online about whether he should be on the 4x4 team or not. Desirez Smith qualified to represent the red, white, and blue by making the final at the USA Championships. He was a short sprinter who converted over to the 400 and continued to run PRs this year on the way to making this team. He ran very well in his, the repechage round they raced against Kenya, but that's besides the point. He is an example of the type of athlete who is a ghost in track and field. Not because he's not talented. He was an amazing talent in college, continued running on the pro circuit. As far as I know, he doesn't have a major professional sponsor. Again, as far as I know. But he's representing the red, white, and blue because he earned it. But that does not make any noise. Like, you'll never know that people like this even exist. They are so far, in a way, absent in American sports media because he's not the only one. Like, this is where we're starting the negotiations from. International track and field is a beautiful thing. I don't mind it. I love the product for what it is. But the idea, again, speaking from an American context, because you got to see it compared to other nations. When you have 330 million people in your nation and professional sports is what we care about. The only time we think about international sports is really for the Olympics. In case you haven't noticed, American soccer doesn't really do all that well when it comes to the World Cup. I mean, yeah, the women do, but that's different. On the men's side, USA soccer is really not that big a deal. Pro sports, that's what we care about here. NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, that is what drives the narrative in America. International sports is a thing. And around the Olympics, like once every 4 years, people can get behind it. But the idea that an international championship on a regular basis, like on a yearly basis, or even close to yearly is what track and field is trying to do. That might work when you're in a smaller country where you're looking for national heroes, like the Netherlands, Jamaica, like They have a very different agenda when it comes to finding track and field athletes. But America has so much talent that we don't know what to do with it. Yes, the talent is weighted to certain events more than others, but we still have an overabundance of talent. And nobody gets to watch these athletes because if you don't make it to the games, like even if you win world championship medals but don't make the games, you still might as well be a ghost. That is where we're starting the negotiations from. And clearly, building some form of effective pro track and field is the only solution to this. Again, from an American framework. The only way that's going to happen is you kind of have to draw a line that separates what's happening on the international scene to what's happening on the pro circuit. If American athletes don't decide, along with all the stakeholders involved, that they want to see pro track thrive and put the energy, time, and effort into it, because I know money is an issue. And I've shared a lot of thoughts on this topic. But just from a competitive standpoint, you're going to have to take part of the season to build a viable product that people could watch if they wanted to. When I say viable, I don't mean just throwing money bags out there. Grand Slam track was an amazing idea, and perhaps it went too big, too quickly. Maybe you don't have to go that far, but we already have track meets right now that nobody really pays attention to. It's because everything is considered to be a lead up to the Olympics. At the World Championship meet this year, before the coverage really got off, NBC was discussing, like things that were going to happen and, the outlook for the sport and the outlook for the championship, all that. Like that was the discussion. And I remember listening to the coverage while they're previewing the meet. And the statement was made that this championship is a part of the lead up to LA for 2028. I know why they said it. And I understand what the narrative in the media is. But the problem with that, from an American context, is you're still feeding into the idea that the Olympics is all that matters. And if that thing is 3 years away, good luck out there trying to convince somebody that this thing actually matters. But before I close, I told you that I was going to give you another side of the story. I'm just going to go to the anecdotes. So I'll give you two of them. One, I was out at the park with my sons. Yes, I have children. And while my children are playing, I'm talking to somebody who's, a father and his kids are playing as well. And I asked him, since he's a sports guy, hey, do you like sports? He's like, yeah. I was like, do you like track and field? Do you follow it at all? He's like, oh, well, I watch it when I can. And I was like, okay, so, like, have you been following the world championships at all? He's like, world championships? What are you talking about? This is after the men's 100-meter final had already finished. And he said, world championships, what are you talking about? This is the same person who understood, he even knew who Dennis Mitchell was. Like he knew things about track and field, but he didn't know the world championships were a thing. For the record, Dennis Mitchell is Sha'Carri Richardson's coach. Among other athletes, but she's probably the most high profile. This is where we're starting negotiations. Here's another story. While talking to a friend of mine on the phone, I asked him, again, somebody who competed in track and field at the high school level, said that they're a casual fan, watched intently during the Olympics. I asked him, hey, have you been following the world championships? He says, I heard something about that. I heard about Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. I saw her race. I saw it on TV. Didn't she break a record or something? That girl, that woman, she's amazing. So he understood Sydney because they showed it to him. He understood that. And then he said, oh, she's bringing attention to the sport. And I was like, I would love to believe that to be true, but she's really bringing attention to herself. Because the story wasn't about the race. He couldn't tell me anybody else who was in that race. Of course, Marilady Paulino and Salwa Eid Nasser are nowhere near his radar. The story was Sydney runs incredibly fast, wins gold, fastest time. That was the story. You see what I'm saying? It's not track and field that's marketed. It's Sydney being marketed. But here's the second half. He then asked me, well, if the world championships are going, how did the fastest woman in the world do? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, tell me in the 100, tell me about that woman. I'm like, oh, you mean Melissa Jefferson Wooden? Because by this point, she's been tearing it up and just won the 100. He's like, no, not her. I don't know who that is. He's like, I'm talking about the lady from the islands. Which island is it? I'm like, you mean St. Lucia? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, you mean Julian Alfred? And he's like, yes, that's it. That's the name. I'm like, bro, Julian Alfred isn't the fastest woman in the world anymore. And he's like, really? What do you mean by that? Because, of course, I know what Melissa Jefferson Wooden did this year, running 10.6, 10.6, 10.61, championship, gold medal, faster than we've ever seen from Julian. Still shout out to her, amazing talent. But that is the point. People don't know what is going on. They don't know. Nobody's telling them. There's a disconnect between what we're calling the pinnacle of the sport and its ability to actually market the sport. People can't watch something if it's not presented to them. I understand the championship might have been in Tokyo, but there was no plan for tape delay or anything. If you did not have a Peacock subscription, and trust me, I have one, you actually had to want to watch the World Championships. It's not like you just log into Peacock and then they promote it. They promote sports on Peacock, don't get me wrong. They promote college football, Big Ten, all of that. They just don't promote track and field. I had to actively click on sports, then navigate the track and field. And after watching a few days of the championship, they started recommending the track and field championship under the sports tab once I clicked on it. But if you don't go looking for track, even when you have a Peacock subscription, you'll never know the World Championships were even a thing. That is my point. So I don't have all the answers, but I do know that pro track and field in some viable form is going to be the solution. How we get there, or if we ever will, is up for debate. But I can't be the only person who sees this problem, because I know the athletes are frustrated that they work incredibly hard, go all the way through a college system, most of them, compete at the highest levels, go out there on what we like to pretend is a pro circuit, just one that nobody can pay, no one can actually understand, and there's very little money on the table for the majority of them. And even if they make Team USA and don't come back with a gold medal, it's almost like nothing ever happened in the first place. You can't even get a blurb write-up on ESPN. A blurb write-up that nobody was going to see anyway, because you got to click on Olympic Sports, which is one of 29 extra options just to get there. But what do I know? Because nobody asked me. So this is one of those videos where I just kind of had to unload and share my thoughts. Let me know in the comments how you feel about all of this. I mean, shout out to the athletes, amazing performances. I know some of them are probably traveling over to Tokyo, from Tokyo by the time this video is released. But at the same time, I want better for the sport. And if you are American and you actually care about track and field, then we're not going to get there if we don't do this together. Because as far as I know, all the talented athletes that we sent over to Tokyo cannot afford to simply wait around for LA 2028 to market their talents. Because food is expensive. And the last time I checked, the prices at Walmart are still going up. In the sport of track and field, race day is honestly the easy part, because all of the real work gets put in when nobody is watching. When you wear every day is training day gear, you can let the whole world know that your success in competition is not an accident. Order yours at scarecruiting.com/shop or use the link in the description below, and it always comes with free shipping. It's a huge support to me and this channel, so I can continue to make you more content like this. And remember, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.